Welcome to the deep dive.
It's great to be digging into this one today.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we are tackling something really practical and honestly something a lot of people dream about. We're diving into excerpts from Millionaire Milestones, Simple Steps to Seven Figures. It's by Sam Dogen.
That's right, Sam Dogen. You probably know him from the Financial Samurai blog. He's basically drawing on his own experiences, his own journey, plus a lot of research, to lay out a path to building wealth.
And you, our listener, shared these sources with us. Sounds like you're looking for, well, a clear roadmap, right? Something that cuts through all the noise out there about getting wealthy.
Exactly. There's so much information, it's overwhelming. So our mission here is to pull out the really important stuff, the core ideas from this book, give you a shortcut, kind of, to being well-informed on the author's take on hitting that millionaire mark.
And this deep dive, it's not just about, the number, $1 million. It's more about getting the knowledge quickly, finding those moments where things just click, the aha moments, understanding what really moves the needle.
Yeah, we'll cover a lot. Mindset shifts, practical strategies, the common traps people fall into, and what wealth even means beyond just the bank account.
It sounds like a journey, and the author has this, well, pretty bold claim, doesn't he?
He does. He says that while getting there isn't easy, obviously, with enough time and the right direction, becoming a millionaire can actually become inevitable.
Inevitable. Wow. Okay, that definitely grabs your attention. So where does he start? How do you make something like that inevitable?
He starts right at the beginning. The why. Like, why are we so obsessed with money anyway? The very first step, according to him, is figuring out your real reasons, getting super specific about why you want that seven-figure number.
So it's not just I want to be rich. It's deeper. Adopting a prosperous mindset by finding those specific purposes. He gives a really personal example, right, about his kids.
He does. It's quite moving, actually. He talks about how his goal totally shifted once he had children. It wasn't just about accumulating money anymore.
It was about time.
Exactly. Buying more time with his kids. And he throws out this stat that's just, well, it stops you in your tracks. Apparently, by the time your kids are 19, you've already spent almost 90% of all the time you'll ever spend with them.
90%. Wow. That really reframes the value of time versus just money, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And he contrasts that with these high-flying, high-stress jobs, like investment banking MDs making over $1 million a year.
Sounds great on paper.
Right. But the cost is huge. Massive stress, no free time. He even mentions studies linking that kind of intense CEO pressure to, like, a shorter life expectancy.
Yikes. Okay, so the core idea is your why, your purpose has to drive everything.
Yeah.
How you earn, how you save, how you spend.
Precisely. It's about balancing the financial goals with, happiness, fulfillment, freedom, and that really precious commodity time.
He uses that image of putting on blinders like a racehorse.
Yeah. Focus on your track, your purpose.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about what everyone else is doing or buying. That why becomes your compass.
Okay, so if the why is the compass, what's the engine, the how? The book says it's not just about earning a ton.
Nope, that's only part of it. The other critical parts are keeping what you earn and then growing it. And one strategy he really hammers home is setting specific net worth targets.
Targets based on age or years worked.
Yeah. Because without those milestones, it's just too easy for money to, well, disappear. Lifestyle creep.
Right, you make more, you spend more.
Exactly. But here's the interesting bit. He says base those targets on a multiple of your income, not your expenses.
Okay, why income, not just covering costs?
Because it forces discipline as you grow. If your income goes up, your savings target automatically goes up too. If you just target expenses, you could theoretically live super frugally forever, but you might not build a big enough base for real freedom or to outpace inflation. Targeting income makes you scale your wealth building with your earning potential.
Okay, that makes sense. So earn well, yes. Aim high, 6, maybe 7 figures, and try to keep that going for, say, a decade or more. But the real lever is the saving rate.
This is where it gets really powerful. The book talks about saving 50% or more of your after-tax income. Think about that. Save half your take-home pay.
And what does that do?
Every year you work and save like that, you essentially buy yourself one full year of financial freedom later on. Your expenses for a year are covered by 1 year of saving.
1 year for 1 year? That's
Yeah.
amazing leverage compared to like a 20% saving rate.
Right. At 20%, it takes you 4 years of working just to save enough to cover 1 year of expenses. The difference is massive. There's a chart in the sources showing this. At an 80% saving rate, you could have 40 years of expenses covered after just 10 years of working and saving.
That's wild. And the point is those high earning years might not last forever, right?
Exactly. especially early career peaks or certain industries. You got to maximize that window. The author himself saved like crazy for 13 years in finance.
Hmm.
That let him step away at 34 with a severance, yeah, but also with about $80 a year in passive income already built up.
So earn big, save bigger, stick with it, which leads to this focus on net worth, not just income.
Totally. Growing net worth is trickier than just getting a raise. It involves investing, managing debt smartly, but it's way more secure in the long run. He points out lots of high earners work forever because they never shifted their focus to actually building lasting wealth.
And the less you need that active income, the paycheck, the more secure you feel. Happier, probably.
Definitely. Once you hit financial independence, you start doing things because you want to, not because you have to. It connects back to that why.
Plus, there are practical advantages to net worth, right? Like taxes.
Huge advantages. Passive income from investments often gets taxed at lower capital gains rates.
Yeah.
It could be 15%, even 0%, depending on your total income. Way better than the rates on your salary, which can climb much higher.
And it helps with family goals, maybe setting up kids. Plus, it's just harder to spend impulsively.
Yeah, that's a great point. Net worth isn't like cash in your checking account. It's usually tied up in investments or real estate. The book likens it to a vault. Easy to put money in, harder to take it out. That friction helps prevent dumb spending mistakes.
So the feeling of security is key. But there's a warning too, right? About getting too confident.
Absolutely critical warning. As your net worth grows, confidence grows, which is natural. But overconfidence is dangerous. As you get closer to your financial independence number, the advice is actually to dial down the risk.
Protect what you've built.
Exactly. You don't want a sudden market crash to wipe out years of progress right when you need the money most.
That leads to that memorable line, date your income, marry your net worth.
Love that line. Income can be exciting, yeah, but it might not stick around. Your net worth, though, that's the foundation. Built right, it's there for the long haul, supporting you with passive income.
Okay, so we're marrying net worth. How do we make it grow faster than just saving? Accelerators.
3 big ones highlighted. First, investing. And the message is blunt. Invest all of what you save. Don't let it just sit there.
Losing value to inflation.
Precisely. The sources point to the long-term average of the S&P 500, roughly 10% a year historically. The simple advice: use low-cost index funds, or ETFs, things like SPY, IVV, VTSAX. Get broad market exposure easily.
And there's that magical number mentioned, $250,000. Why is that specific amount so important?
It's about momentum. Psychologically, it feels substantial. Practically, based on that historical 10% return, $250K could potentially spin off about $25,000 a year.
Okay. And why is that significant?
Well, at the time the book was written, $25K a year from passive investments could actually be more than the maximum amount someone under 50 could even contribute to their 401K each year. It's a tipping point where your money starts doing some seriously heavy lifting for you.
Wow. So your investments start contributing more than you can actively save in certain accounts. That's huge.
Exactly. And maxing out those tax-advantaged accounts, 401K, 403Bs, whatever you have access to, is presented as a super powerful way to drive towards that $250 K mark. Maybe get there in about 11 years, just from contributions, even before growth or matching.
Okay. Investing is number one. What's next?
Real estate. Always a favorite for the wealthy, the book says. Mainly because of leverage.
Leverage. Okay, break that down simply. Using borrowed money.
Pretty much. You get a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
You put down maybe 20%, but you control 100% of the property. So if the property value goes up 10%.
Your return on your actual cash down payment is much higher than 10%.
Way higher. Because the gain is on the whole property value, fueled by the bank's money. That's leverage working for you.
Got it. The flip side is it works against you if prices fall, I assume.
Absolutely. It magnifies losses, too. Which is why a long-term view and not over-borrowing are key. But the book also emphasizes the sheer cost of not owning, especially in big cities.
Right.
Renters might spend millions over a lifetime just on rent. It's like betting against the housing market long-term.
And owning forces you to save, right?
Right.
Paying down the mortgage principal.
Yes, every payment builds equity. It's automatic wealth building. The author shares his own story, bought a condo for $580K, put down $116K. 12 years later, that $116K had turned into $1.25 million in equity.
Whoa. That's incredible growth on the initial investment.
It really is. And he calculates that getting that same result, just investing the $116K in the stock market, would have required something like a 22% annual return every single year for 12 years. Highly unlikely without the leverage from the mortgage.
So for buying a home, there's a rule of thumb. the 30-33 rule.
Yeah, it's a guideline. Try to keep your total housing payment, mortgage, taxes, insurance at or below 30% of your gross income. Have at least 30% of the home's value saved up, that's 20% down, plus a 10% buffer for costs and immediate needs. And try to limit the home's price to no more than 3 times your annual gross income.
Aim to hit at least 2 out of 3.
That's the suggestion. And plan way ahead for the down payment. The sources even give ideas on how to invest that money depending on your timeline and risk tolerance.
And hold on to the property for a while.
Definitely plan for at least 5 years. Markets cycle up and down. Plus, selling is expensive, traditionally 5–6% in commissions and costs. You need time for the value to hopefully appreciate enough to cover those costs and make a profit.
Although those selling costs might be changing.
Yes. The sources mention recent legal stuff with the National Association of Realtors, the NAR settlements. The hope is that commissions might come down, which would be good for sellers.
And long term, maybe own multiple properties.
Yeah, the idea of being long real estate, maybe owning your primary home plus rentals, 1 per family member plus 1, potentially to benefit from rental income and appreciation over decades.
Okay, investing, real estate. What's the third accelerator?
Entrepreneurship.
Uh-huh.
But maybe not in the way most people think.
Not building the next Google.
Not necessarily. The advice is think small to get big. Often it's about improving an existing idea, finding a niche, providing better service, not always reinventing the wheel.
Like the author starting Financial Samurai, it began as just a personal blog, a side hustle, while he still had his finance job.
Exactly. He didn't bet the farm immediately. He built it slowly alongside his main income. This ties into thinking like an investor about your business. A business making, say, $1 million in profit each year isn't just worth $1 million.
Right, because it keeps generating profit.
Yeah.
And could be sold.
Precisely. You get the ongoing profit and the potential for a big payout later, a liquidity event. Plus, the sources talk about lifestyle businesses.
Meaning?
Businesses optimized not just for maximum scale, but for freedom, flexibility, doing work you find meaningful. The author points to being a stay-at-home dad as a huge non-monetary return from his business. Wealth isn't just money, right? It's freedom, health, peace of mind. Those become way more important after 40, he argues.
And there's a framework for starting a business, too. The 3-33.
Yeah, another practical rule.
Uh-huh.
Work on the business for 3 years while you're still employed. Gives you security. You don't need to pay yourself much. Aim to get the business profit covering at least 30% of your living expenses. Then, if it's working, maybe go all in for another 3 years. Knowing you can probably go back to a job if it fails reduces the fear factor.
Okay, those are powerful accelerators. But wealth building isn't just offense, it's defense, too. Avoiding big mistakes.
Oh, absolutely crucial. You have to navigate the financial minefield. Small mistakes, fine, learn from them. But big losses, they can be crippling, set you back years.
What are some common big mistakes highlighted?
Trying to constantly beat the market is a big one. The sources are pretty clear. Most individual investors just don't succeed at that long term.
Day trading.
Called out specifically as mostly a waste of time and money. And using margin borrowing to invest is flagged as really dangerous. High costs, huge stress, and you can be forced to sell at the absolute worst time.
What else? Debt and credit.
Huge. Bad credit costs you a fortune in higher interest rates, especially on big things like mortgages. And just, spending too much, not being able to make savings last, that's just a recipe for disaster.
The book mentions greed, even for the wealthy.
Yeah, a sharp point. No amount of money makes you immune. The reminder that credit card interest rates are higher than even Warren Buffett's amazing long-term returns really drives home how damaging bad debt is. And also, avoiding that feeling of entitlement thinking you deserve wealth without doing the work.
Ignoring income ups and downs is another one, especially for high earners.
Yes, because high incomes are often less stable, tied to bonuses, commissions, market conditions. The author regrets buying a pricey vacation home right before his own income dropped significantly.
So plan for the worst-case income scenario before big buys.
Definitely. And don't underestimate taxes. Plan for them. Understand how different income types affect your tax bracket.
And finally, just taking too much risk in general.
People often overestimate their stomach for risk until a real bear market hits. Take too much, you get wiped out. Take too little, you might never reach your goals. It's about finding that prudent balance.
Okay.
Mistakes happen, but you want to avoid the ones you can't recover from. It takes time and mental toughness to bounce back.
The core message seems to be protect yourself from yourself as much as from the market.
Exactly. Stop the excuses, automate your savings and investing, aim for that $250K mark, and be super careful to avoid these major blowups.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, it's not just what you do, but where you do it. Location matters.
The book makes a strong case for it. Being where the money is concentrated increases your odds.
How so?
Higher salaries, better networking, more industry opportunities, just by being physically present in those high-income cities. Think Silicon Valley for tech, New York for finance, etc. The sources list the usual suspects, San Jose, SF, NYC, but also newer hubs like Austin, even Fayetteville, Arkansas, because of Walmart and Tyson.
And it's not just jobs, but lifestyle, too.
Often, yeah. Better schools, healthcare access, culture, diversity. But the career aspect is key, especially early on. Even with remote work, the book argues being physically present helps build connections, get noticed for promotions, harder when you're just a face on a screen.
What about moving away from expensive areas? Geo-arbitrage.
That's a powerful tool too,
Yeah.
especially if you can do it within the same metro area first. Keep the city salary, but move to a cheaper suburb. The author mentions saving 40% on living costs by moving just a few miles west in San Francisco. Big impact.
And being in those right places leads to connections.
It can. The author tells a story about getting into a hot startup investment, rippling, basically through a tennis buddy whose friend worked at a VC firm. Serendipity, that happens more easily when you're in the network.
Connections are key. Which leads us to relationships, marriage, family, finances. This is huge.
Absolutely massive. Financial compatibility is called out as maybe the most important factor for a successful marriage. Money fights are just so common and destructive.
But getting it right can accelerate wealth building.
Big time. Two incomes rowing in the same direction towards shared goals, that's powerful, but you have to talk about it openly first.
Get financially naked, the book says.
Yeah. Lay it all out before marriage. Goals, debts, habits. Ideally, achieve some smaller financial goals together first to see how you work as a team.
And how to manage money after marriage. Joint accounts. Separate.
The recommendation is both. Joint for shared bills and goals, but also separate accounts.
Why separate?
To give each partner autonomy, a sense of contribution, independence. Avoids resentment over small personal purchases. The story about Lisa and the massage money illustrates this perfectly conflict because every dollar came from the shared pot. Earmarking money for a primary caregiver is also really important.
What about prenups? Still taboo.
The book argues they shouldn't be, especially if there's a big wealth difference coming into the marriage. It's not planning for failure, it's creating clarity, which can actually reduce stress and protect both spouses.
It boils down to the 3 H's for marriage.
Health, happiness, and harmony. Financial stress wrecks harmony fast. So tackle issues directly.
And kids, it's not just about leaving them money.
Not at all. It's time, support, values. And crucially, teach them financial literacy before they leave home. Schools mostly don't, but it's vital for their future independence. Saves them, and maybe you a lot of trouble later.
Plus, saving for their education, those costs are insane.
Astronomical and rising fast. Got to plan early. And one more thing. Aging parents. This sandwich generation struggle is real.
Supporting kids and parents simultaneously.
Yeah, many parents haven't saved enough. Long-term care is incredibly expensive. So you need to be aware, research options, and maybe take steps like getting power of attorney sorted out for your own finances, just in case.
Okay, wow. So we've built the wealth, navigated pitfalls, managed relationships. What happens when you actually hit millionaire status? Time to party.
Well, yes and no. The goal shifts to spending wisely and enjoying it. But that's actually harder than it sounds for many people.
Why? You finally have the money.
Because that saver mindset, that frugal muscle you built for years, it's hard to turn off. You can feel guilty spending, even though that was the whole point.
So you need a strategy for spending too.
Definitely. The book discusses withdrawal rates. The old 4% rule from the 90s might be outdated now with lower interest rates. The author proposes his own, the Financial Samurai Withdrawal Rate, or FSWR.
How does that work?
It's dynamic. It ties your spending rate to current bond yields specifically, 80% of the 10-year Treasury rate. So if rates are low, you spend less. If rates are higher, you can spend more. It adapts to the economic climate.
Beyond just covering bills, what about enjoying the wealth?
Generosity is a big theme. Giving time, money. The author finds more satisfaction in giving, like through his blog, than receiving. Also, spending on experiences, investing in that happiness bank with family and friends.
And investing in health.
Absolutely. Spending on things that increase longevity, better health care, fitness lets you enjoy your wealth longer. Be smart about it, though. The book mentions being aware of the costs and potential downsides of some new health tech, like full-body scans.
And finally, legacy. How you're remembered.
Yeah, it's much bigger than just the inheritance. It's about your values, your impact. The story of Randy Pausch's last lecture is used as an example of leaving a powerful, non-monetary legacy.
But practical estate planning is still vital.
Crucial. Even if you're not a billionaire, get a will. Consider a revocable living trust. It offers more control, privacy, avoids probate usually. Probate can be slow and costly, eating 3–8% of the estate.
And name guardians for kids.
Non-negotiable if you have minors. Get life insurance, especially when you're younger, maybe a 30-year term policy. Teach your kids about values, not just money. And organize everything a death file and talk about your wishes.
What if you expect to have way more than the estate tax limits?
Then the advice is maybe start spending or giving it away strategically while you're alive. Decumulate intentionally rather than leaving a massive chunk to taxes after you're gone. Live with purpose, give with purpose.
So that's the whole arc. Mindset, saving, investing, real estate, business, avoiding mistakes, location, relationships, spending, legacy. It's a lot.
It really is. We've covered a ton from these sources. It's definitely a marathon, like the author says, not a sprint. Requires conscious choices all along the way.
But that core idea persists. With time and direction, it can become inevitable.
That's the provocative claim. And again, it's less about the specific number and more about the freedom and time that wealth can buy. Living life on your terms.
A key takeaway for me running through all of this is just action and humility.
Yes. Stop making excuses. Start saving, start investing, automate it. Aim for that 250K initial target to feel the momentum.
And the humility part.
Embrace probability. If something looks like a 70% good decision, the book suggests maybe you should take it. But always know you could be wrong 30% of the time. Learn from mistakes, just don't make the catastrophic ones you can't recover from.
Ultimately, it's not just about you, is it? It's about family, maybe leaving things better, competing on time and freedom.
Those are the currencies that truly matter in the end, according to the author. Time and freedom.
So let's leave our listeners with this thought straight from the sources. If the whole point of building wealth is security and freedom, does actually reaching millionaire status change your definition of enough? Or is enough always kind of shifting, always a bit further down the road?
That's a great question to ponder. Is the pursuit itself part of the goal?